not Nell.
Before we start, I just want to let you know that this episode contains some strong language.
When I started singing, it was all, here. And when you sing properly, you sing from down here. So if you put your hands on your stomach like that, now you breathe in and just let the hands move apart. Can you feel that? And if you breathe from the diaphragm and push the air up, you squeeze that in, then your fingertips will come back together. So if I take a note, like any note, and go, ah, can you hear that? So it's not very strong, it's not very powerful. Now, if I sing from the diaphragm, which is lower down, I fill up with air, and then I push, and I go, ah. See the difference in the sound? By learning to breathe properly, I now have more control over the sound I'm making.
You're listening to Sing It Pink, the story of the Pink Singers. London and Europe's oldest LGBTQ+ choir. Hi, I'm Olivia, an alto, and for episode 4, I'll be your guide. A choir, that is, a group of people who sing together, each with different vocal parts. Usually sopranos, altos, tenors, and basses. Well, choirs have existed since the times of the ancient Greeks. LGBTQ+ choirs, however, have been around for a much shorter period, though Philip Briscola, your host from episode 2, tends to disagree.
I always say, well, strictly speaking, there's no such thing as a heterosexual choir.
OK then, choirs that have officially alleged themselves under the LGBTQ+ banner have had a much younger journey. In 1978, the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus became the first choir to include gay in its name. They had been inspired by the successes of pioneering feminist groups, like the Anacrusis Women's Choir, many of whose members also identified as LGBTQ. The San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus were later followed by the first mixed lesbian and gay chorus, Stonewall Chorale. Then, in 1983, choruses across the USA began to connect through GALA, the new Gay and Lesbian Association of Choruses, which helped the movement to grow and thrive. The Pink Singers' co-founder, Brian Kennedy, had been inspired by the American LGBTQ+ choral movement. This was the main inspiration behind the choir's formation in 1983. Just 3 months after that first Pinkies meeting, the choir's other co-founder, Mark Bunyan, handed over the responsibility of musical director to Robert Hugel. As musical director, Robert's responsibilities now included leading weekly rehearsals, preparing the Pinkies for gigs and concerts, organising repertoire, and of course, conducting them through the music.
There was quite a group of people, so it seemed ridiculous to let this community energy disappear.
Faced with the prospect of guiding the choir, Robert thought to himself,
well, if nobody else is going to do it, come on, let's fucking do it.
Robert had sung in a school choir, and after being overcome with musical interest as a child, he begged his parents to buy an old second-hand pub piano.
It really had been a pub piano because it used to disgorge things from between the keys when you played, including a sixpence once, to my great delight.
By 1983, Robert was out as a gay man and living in London. He was singing in the London Philharmonic Choir and working as a computer programmer. In some ways, his technical day job helped solidify the type of music he was interested in.
Experiencing music is in different ways. There is an emotional level, but for me to be drawn in, I think about what's happening underneath, and that's partly because I'm a scientist by training, I'm a mathematician, and that is the way I think.
Robert's personal tastes informed his song choices when he became the Pink Singers' musical director.
We never did anything poppy. We never did any of the repertoire that's vaguely associated with the American gay choirs.
Far from the mainstream charts, the Pink Singers sang works from artists including Tom Lehrer, Tom Robinson, Stephen Sondheim, Noel Coward, and also some more politically motivated music. As gay-specific political songs didn't necessarily exist, Robert turned to the music of German-Austrian composer Hans Eisler. His Solidarity song was a revolutionary workers' song, first written by Bertolt Brecht and set to the music by Eisler. Robert felt that its motifs of togetherness in the face of struggle would connect with the Pink Singers.
Forward and let's remember what our strengths always was and shall be. In famine and in plenty, forward and let's remember its solidarity. It asks to be sung strongly by a group of people. So it was a bit like a protest song. None of these songs were about being gay. They were all about being sort of other in different senses of the word.
One of the singers who sang under the guidance of Robert Hugill was Dennis Killen. Dennis was born in 1952 in Luton. At a young age, his parents realised that he had a disability which impaired his sight and also affected his right hand and foot. As a child, Dennis lived full-time in a boarding school in Coventry. It specifically provided a home and education for children with disabilities.
They would send children to these places. And I mean, there was an attitude, I think, of out of sight, out of mind a little bit about disability. I mean, people were still in institutions, a lot of disabled people at that time.
Whilst living in the school, Dennis felt isolated from his family.
When you're miles away from home, you feel very much alone. And the thing is, I mean, I think other disabled kids who've had that experience of growing up away from home have had this feeling of being cut off from their families. Because if you think of all the things that go on within families on a day-to-day basis, well, that's part of what makes the connection between people in families. If you're separated from that, then you don't have that.
During his younger years, Dennis realised he was gay. He left school and gained a new form of independence.
Everything, your social clothes, as well as your school uniform, everything was provided by the school. So that was strange to leave that and then to simply make choices about what you wore. You know, I mean, from never being able to make that decision to suddenly decide, who am I? What do I like? What do I like wearing, you know?
By 1979, Dennis had moved to London. The 80s saw Dennis searching for his place in society.
Because I was looking for my place as a gay man, but also I was also finding out about my place as a disabled person as well.
Dennis helped coordinate festivals for artists with disabilities. He hosted exhibitions, workshops, and performances across London. He was also involved with a gay theatre company called Consenting Adults in Public. They took shows up to the Edinburgh Fringe and also into the darkness of Hampstead Heath.
And that's where the singing started, because one of the plays was a kind of a spoof on a Shakespeare play, Midsummer Night's Dream, but all the characters were gay. So you had the PC Raspberry, who was supposed to be an undercover policeman, who was supposed to be lurking on Hampstead Heath to catch people cruising. And then there was Peascod, who was a sort of drag activist. So he came on with this sort of crinoline that sort of stuck out 3 feet sideways and wore a cardigan with loads of badges on, you know, Gay Lib, CND and all that pinned on them. one performance we did on midnight on Hampstead Heath, which was great because we got these, the garden candles that you get. We kind of created a sort of open stage area on Hampstead Heath, and we performed it there. So because it was theatre in the round, we tried to get everyone to sit in groups so there was room to come on. But of course, people inevitably sprawled. So we were sort of stumbling over legs in the dark, getting on and off stage and all this sort of thing. But it was great fun. I mean, it was really great fun.
Dennis's time with consenting adults in public forged the start of his lifelong love affair with singing.
It feels great. I think it's great when you're part of a collective group of people who are all, wanting to sing. It's empowering. I think it empowers you to be expressive and express yourself. It's about connecting to your soul, I think.
And so, when Dennis saw the Pink Singers advertised in a gay newspaper, he went along.
It was very obviously as a statement of being out. So that felt important at the time, that we were doing something that would potentially get out to the public at large.
Dennis was still with the choir in 1988, when Robert Hugill introduced a full programme of music from the 1930s. As well as the workers' songs, Robert was also encouraging the choir to sing more experimental repertoire, including Percy Grainger's Soldier, Soldier, which was first published in 1925 and featured lyrics written by Rudyard Kipling.
Oh, some quite obscure stuff. Percy Grainger was one that comes to mind. It was a kind of tone thing. And then, I sort of thought, well, that's an interesting thing to use the voice as an instrument, not just as a thing for churning out words. So you can make sounds and, create whole new areas of stuff.
Though Dennis did enjoy this more experimental collection of songs, there was a growing discontent amongst the rest of the choir.
I'm willing to sing experimental stuff, but I think for a lot of people, they wanted to sing a lot lighter and more, maybe fluffier stuff. And he wanted to go towards classical and more serious kind of music.
After the choir had finished performing their 1930s concert, Robert and the Pink Singers parted ways.
That's one of the contributory reasons why I stepped down as musical director, because the musical direction they wanted to take it in was not one I was interested in. It was a style of music that didn't interest me.
As for Dennis, he continued to sing with the Pink Singers before moving north to Huddersfield. Nowadays, he lives with Mike, his husband, who he met in 2005. And of course, he's still singing.
Everyone has a voice. You may not end up being an opera singer or someone who stands and sings in the front of a band. But that doesn't mean to say you can't add a voice to a sound.
Since Robert's departure, the choir has had a number of musical directors. There was Michael Derrick, who you've heard from a number of times in this series, and amongst others, Paul Cutts, Mladen Stankovic, and Kim Stevens. Each MD brought their own spirit and guided the choir through different times. As the years have passed, the Pink Singers' repertoire became much more varied and modern. As you've heard in the last episode, the Pink Singers committed to being more inclusive. The choir's most recent musical director is Murray Hipkin.
So you sing, welcome, you sing the hand up and you go like this, welcome. It feels like you're singing down a home. Just, when you sing the hand, I'm going to show you the downwards.
Murray joined the choir in 2010. After he was appointed, he called up an old friend from university, John, who became his accompanist until this day. After all these years, Murray and John still make a brilliant musical partnership. We've talked about the role of a musical director, but what does an accompanist do?
My job is to enhance and support their ideas and their vision of the piece that we're playing, even if it's very different from how I played it 2 days ago, and even if it isn't entirely compatible with how I personally would really love to play the piece.
So an accompanist supports the MD with their vision for a piece of music, and then they help bring it to life with the rest of the choir.
We give everybody printed music because even the people who don't read music, firstly, they need the words, and we always say to the choir in a first read-through, if you just want to listen, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, you don't have to sing along the first time. And we play each individual part, and so we help people to learn by ear as well. And we also have a wonderful guy in the choir who completely voluntarily and willingly makes recordings on his keyboard of all the notes that everybody's got to sing. And so you can access those parts. If you're the second alto, you can access the part of the piece that we're learning. So in between rehearsals, they have to do a lot of homework.
Feel safe.
For the past 13 years, Murray and John have worked side by side to bring music to wide-ranging audiences. Under their tenure, the Pinkies have grown in numbers, travelled all over the world, and released 3 CD albums. John thinks that the growth of the choir is likely down to changing times, but also partly due to his and Murray's dedication to precision. As a musical team, they really encourage the Pinkies to aim for professional standards.
I'm not saying the choir wasn't accurate before, but my goodness, they are now. And we rehearse, and if they get a rhythm wrong, we tell them that they've got it wrong, and we show them what it should be, and we help them to get it right. But I think that's one of the reasons that the Pink Singers' performances have such a high reputation, is because you can hear it in our recordings, in our CDs, and in the videos that you can find on YouTube. You can hear every word, you can hear what we're singing, and not every 100-strong choir sings with that quality of articulation and accuracy. And I think that has been one of the very big strengths.
After such a long and successful run together, John is feeling proud of all of their work, but also a little wobbly as Murray is leaving the choir at the end of the season.
It's a cause of sadness. We've been such a strong team, and we've worked so well together, and I will miss that. I will miss that massively. I tease him mercilessly, and the choir loves it, and because they're not allowed to. And he sometimes teases me, which is quite right and proper. But yeah, he will be much missed.
Despite his emotion, John believes that the choir will be in safe hands with its upcoming interim director.
She's been part of the choir for one thing, and so she knows what it's about, but also she's got a lot of experience already, and I'm sure that she's going to carry on demanding very high standards from the choir and helping them to achieve them.
And well, I'm sort of embarrassed to say this, but I have to say thanks, John, because he's actually talking about me. Let me reintroduce myself. I'm Olivia, and I'm going to be looking after the choir in the interim until the new musical director is formally appointed. And I couldn't be more thrilled.
And we're going to do Musical Hope Machine. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1.
Yes, here I am, guiding the Pink Singers through one of our Sunday rehearsals. And as you've just heard, I'm going to be taking over the role of interim musical director. Emphasis on the interim, as this is a temporary situation until the new musical director is in place. And to be honest, it's all been a bit of a surprise. My journey with the choir has been relatively unusual. I only joined as a member in 2022. I'd wanted to get back into singing for fun, because I'm a voice teacher. I spend my days teaching singing technique, and I also work in musical theatre. It's a job I love, but I was missing the camaraderie of performing with a group just for sheer enjoyment. I'm also bisexual, so I was looking for a way to connect with the queer community. When I joined, the choir was 5 weeks away from a big concert. They needed an alto and asked if I could learn the songs and the choreography in that short time.
Very neutral. And when the basses come in with their first note is when we just start like shaking our shoulders like this. And we do that throughout it all. Are you mirroring?
It was a struggle, but I made it. And from that point on, I was hooked.
3, 4, 1.
I was quite a loud child. So my parents were like, well, that one needs to go to stage school. So on a Saturday, they signed me up for a local Amdram Kids Club, which ran from 9 till 1 on a Saturday morning. It was the perfect place to get all of my loudness out. And in hindsight, it's probably where my love of musical theatre was born. After a short detour into self-identifying as a sporty person, I returned back to music during my teenage years. Like many, I would sing when no one was in the house. Then, when I was at college, I signed up for a sixth form open mic night and sang a dramatic version of a pop song, as most 16-year-olds would do. And that was that. The next thing I knew, I was starting a music degree with a focus on singing. I went on to study a master's in voice and have since become a singing teacher. I'm also fascinated by the anatomy of voice. There's a lot that needs to happen for a person to produce sound from their larynx or voice box. And so much of our knowledge around voice has drastically changed in the last decade alone. Nowadays, I use my understanding of voice on a technical level to try help people to get the most out of their singing voice. I also want people to understand ways in which they can use it more efficiently or healthily. It's not always about being technical. Most of the time, when a singer has a greater kinesthetic or physical understanding of their own voice, it allows them to make more vulnerable and interesting artistic choices. And I think this is what makes a more successful performance.
Let's hear it from where joy. We love us some history. Everyone sing, we hope you'll all join in. Let's. If you want a handy dandy way to get that horrible jump for let's.
Today, we're in Kennington, just a stone's throw away from Oval House, where the choir's original rehearsals took place in 1983. We're getting ready for our upcoming concert, and we have lots of music to prepare. But as this is our 40th year, we also have a new composition which has been specially commissioned to celebrate this monumental anniversary. And the music has been composed by Simon, a bass.
So we got a bunch of sort of volunteers from the choir together in focus groups in the summer of 2023 and talked to them really about their experiences of being in the choir and what they wanted a piece commissioned by the choir in 2023 to be about. Like, what is it? What is it that we want to say with something right now?
We hope that you'll all join in. Let's sing. All join in. Let's sing.
We ended up having a whole load of really interesting conversations and sharing stories about, why we joined the choir, what it's done for us, what we've been able to do with it and to further its causes as well. And it was a really lovely thing. What we ended up with was about 80 pages of notes and transcripts.
Some specific phrases really stood out to Simon.
I think particular resonance for me. We've always been here, we will always be here. That was something that Josie, one of the basses, said. It's something that we've heard before, but I think it's just especially relevant here. Like a squabbling group of, high drama queers all managing to keep an organisation going for 40 years. That's pretty impressive. And I think the other one that really is really important to me is, you won't be judged here for being you. That's what people face in everyday life as a member of a minority group. That's a really resonant line for me, I think, and that's what I think the choir and other queer choirs like it everywhere are sort of providing for their membership, as well as what that collective then can do for the community it's part of as a whole.
These lyrics swirled around in Simon's mind until...
And I literally woke up in the middle of the night one night and it came up with a kind of little melody for that. Sang it really badly into my phone. And then that kind of ended up forming a whole sort of sound world off the back of that. I started playing with some chords around that. And then the first part of the song came out quite quickly, this idea of, it being kind of arriving at your first rehearsal. And I also looked into the archive for this, and I found the sign-up sheet from the first ever Pink Singers rehearsal, which was a lovely thing to find and an amazing thing to have kept in the archive. And it's really interesting because at the beginning, people started to fill that in with, alto or tenor / accompanist was one of them. And then there's a few people who say my voice part is political, which was just really, I think that's also still true, but it also sort of speaks to where people were at with it, and they understood what they were doing in 83. They were forming a group like this as a political act, and they were there to be visible and be out proud. And then it finishes with a sort of sense of this idea of this kind of engine, right? It's bigger. This group is bigger than the sum of any of us.
Simon called the piece Homemade Musical Hope Machine.
This, 3 and 4 and go. Beautiful. Questions on that?
And the idea of a hope machine is not mine. It's from an academic called Ben Walters, who is also one of the people heavily involved with Ducky, which is a sort of amazing thing. It started out as a club night in the 90s at the Royal Vauxhall Tavern, but then has turned into a sort of arts vehicle which does lots of really great stuff supporting queer people, and particularly weird and wonderful projects that they put on. And Ben's research looked at how and why these things exist, and he came up with this idea of marginalised communities create sort of homemade, what he calls mutant hope machines, so slightly unusual things that kind of make sense and resonate with that community and give them some hope, even if they're being oppressed by wider society. And I was, as soon as I read his work and saw his presentation about it, I was like, well, that's exactly what the Pinkies is doing. We just happen to be singing, So that's kind of where that came from, and that's why the piece is called Homemade Musical Hope Machine, because I think that's unwittingly what Brian Kennedy, the founder, and Mark Bunyan, the co-founders, have created. Yeah, hopefully it captures in 6 minutes what the choir is sort of for.
What you're hearing now is a rehearsal of this new composition in progress. We're taking Homemade Musical Hope Machine off copy for the very first time. This means putting our sheet music down and trying to sing it from memory. And well, as you can hear, there's always room for improvement. We're only a couple of months away from our 40th anniversary celebration at Cadogan Hall, and it's clear there's a lot of work to be done. I'm sure we'll still manage to go to the pub after rehearsal, though. As for that full-time musical director job, I'm so glad to be taking the choir through to the end of the season. But at the moment, I'm not sure whether I'll be applying for the role. As much as it would be a dream to work with the choir permanently, for me there's a lot at stake. This is my queer home, my community, and I don't necessarily want to change the dynamic that we've already built together. But let's see what happens. On the next episode of Sing It Pink, the Pinkies go on tour.
So this club, as you walked in, you went down masses of stairs, and then there was like a dance floor, which was like where the bar was. That was all very normal. That's what you expect in a club. Then just as part of the nightclub, there was a sauna. And we're all a bit like, okay, is it an actual sauna where you go and sauna, or is it something else? And it was an actual sauna, so that was good. And so I really wanted to sauna, but I was the only like woman that wanted to go and do the sauna with all the blokes. And in Finland, you do it naked as well, just to put this in context.
Sing It Pink, the story of the Pink Singers, is an Aunt Nell production. It was made possible by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. The presenter of episode 4 was Olivia Doust. The producer was Rachel Byrne. The assistant producer was Marnie Woodmeade. The executive producers were Tash Walker and Adam Zmith. The executive producer for the Pink Singers was Chris Scales. Audio mix was by David Pye. Special thanks to Simon Pearson, Robert Hugill, Dennis Killin, John Flinders, Murray Hipkin, Philip Rascola, the Pink Singers, and Acast Studios.